Welcome to the Bethel Assembly Sermon Podcast. We're so glad you're taking a minute to listen, and we pray this message from our pastors will be a blessing on your life this week.
Now, that's 2025. Today, I've asked Pastor Kevin to come up here and help me again in our message today, because I want us to talk about the importance, the significance of work. Now, Christmas is a special time because for me, it was the only time of year that I knew my dad would be home. Christmas began midway through Christmas Eve. Daddy was going to work the first half of Christmas Eve, but the second half, he was home. When Daddy got home, Christmas got started. It was the only time of year I knew my dad was going to take off. My dad likes to work. He still likes to work. He loves to work. His body don't like to work as much as he likes to work. He tells me all the time he's wore out. He chastises himself. I'm a lazy bum. No, people sit down every once in a while, Dad, all right? But he likes to work. He's always loved it. But for me, I knew Christmas began when the rocks began to crunch under Daddy's truck, I knew that was when Christmas started. Now, work is very important. Back in the old-fashioned Christmas days, it was the only time people took any rest. Because when the land rests, the man rests. We came from the dirt, so when it takes a break, we all do too. And that's the way it used to be. You couldn't plant during the winter. I know we can do anything now. Thanks to Mr. Henry Ford and Thomas Edison, y'all have to take a day off because we can work year-round. But the way it used to be was that when you let the land rest, you could rest. And that was the only time, a lot of times, families even got time to spend together. That's why Christmas was so cherished. That's why it mattered so much. And we try to maintain that tradition, but I know for my dad, every time he tries to maintain that tradition, he sees a log truck go by the house, it makes him sick to the stomach. Somebody else is out there cutting down some trees. And that's how we feel sometimes, is that, well, I took a day, I did all I could. Now, here's what I want to hear. If you're in your 20s or under, if you're under 20, I want everybody to look up at me real good. If you're under 20, I know you're getting ready to go back to Facebook or Snapchat or whatever, but just right a second, just clue in. If you are under 29 years old, okay, you need to find a job. And you need to work. And you need to work hard. And you don't need to hear the buzzer go off in the morning and think to yourself, I wonder if I'll go to work today. Every day that sun comes up, your hind part should be headed to work. Now, have a Sabbath. But I want to be very clear. If you're under 30, you should not be thinking about how tired your body is. You should not be thinking about how much you like the people at your work. They don't like you either. If you are in your 20s, take your hind parts to work, because if you will work hard, you'll earn a rest. Rests come after work. You can't rest up for work. Rest comes after work. Anybody over 29, can you just nod with me a little bit? Help me out? Okay, all right. Now here's what I want to be very clear. If you're not working hard, start. Work is incredibly validating. The reason your generation, other older generations say you're sorry. You're not sorry. You're sick. And the reason you are is because you don't know what an honest day's work means. Not because you've never worked, but because you haven't worked enough days to bring the joy that comes along with working. There is a validation, an affirmation that comes along with work. And if you don't believe me, talk to somebody who's retired. Ask them how they feel now that they don't know. They know the hours of the day go by. They just don't know where to go. Talk to that person. And I promise you they'll tell you they miss. Not that they want to go back. They don't want to go back. But they miss the affirmation of knowing where they're going to be each day. That they've got something to do and that they got something done. When you get a few things done, then you earn yourself a rest. Now, if you're 29 and over and you got little brats in your house, listen to me. Those days off are pure magic for those kids. I know it may look like they're on their cell phone the whole time, but there's something that happens different when everybody's in the house, even for the kids. There's a magic that comes along with this time off that the kids cannot state in words what it means to them. So don't think it a small thing when you take time off to be with them. Don't think it's a small thing to get the family together. Don't stress out about how much food you've got to have. They're going to eat whatever. Have Hot Pockets if you want them. Have the people together, because that is the magic of Christmas. Work is very validating. If you work hard enough, you get to rest. Kevin, help me out. I ain't looked at my notes yet, so I'm probably way off.
You're going. No. When we were talking about this, I thought, what is the importance of work, and is there a scriptural basis for this? And so if you go back all the way to Genesis chapter 1, anybody read Genesis chapter 1, what does God do? He works. He creates the world. He creates everything that there is. He brings it into existence. But there's also the next part when we start in chapter 2, what does God do? On the seventh day, he does what? Rest. And so there's biblical statements all the way through the Bible that give us these examples of the importance of work, that you've got to work. God worked, but he also took time to rest, and the importance of that rest. And part of that is because we both come from families that found the importance of work. And I mean, goodness, Dad was all the time working. As a missionary, Dad was working constantly. When he pastored, he was always working constantly. I mean, not a day went by that he wasn't working, that he wasn't invested into what he was doing. And those are important times. And sometimes I feel like we can forget, because as we were talking, I was trying to remember, and it was hard for me to remember a time when Dad actually he wasn't good at Sabbathing. Dad wasn't real good at taking a day of rest. And it's important that we do that. God sets the example for us because we need it mentally, we need it physically, we need it for our families, for those that are around us. We need that time, not just as a wasteful day. Some of you feel like, if I take a rest, I'm wasting the day. Some of you can't hardly stand it if you got to spend 45 minutes no, I got to be doing something, because if I'm not, then I'm not being good to anybody around me, because I'm not working, I'm not going hard at it. And we forget that the rest part is of importance too, because it's meaningful to those that are around you. You're giving of your time, you're giving of your person to those that are around you to interact with. And so God sets that precedence from the very beginning for us of the importance of work.
Right.
The other part of that is sometimes let me just ask the question. How many of you walking into church on Sundays, especially if you park here in the back, have walked through and seen a bottle on the ground? Come on, raise your hand. Some of you are just like this.
Just you.
Just me. I'm the only one who's seen. How many of you stopped to pick up a bottle? A few of you. There's trash. There's things around. But sometimes the attitude comes about, well, that's not my job. Sometimes the attitude that comes in is, I don't need to be doing those things because that's not what I do. And I've always been of the mindset, if you see a need, fill a need.
Right.
You have the exact same capability as anybody else to do that, so why not try and fill the need? And I think it comes into play with the work aspect as well. And so what does that have to do with Christmas?
Yeah, I mean, again, I want to be very clear one more time, because here's what often happens. I grew up on Disney, okay? My age group, if you're in my age group, we grew up on Disney, which Disney says any dad that's got a job is a bum. Have y'all watched any of these shows? A dad who cares about his work That's the overall thing you get from Disney, is that if a dad has a job, obviously he doesn't care about the kids. And so you have all these kids, you're like, my dad never understood me. He was at work. He understood you. He was taking care of the family. He was doing what he was supposed to do. I grew up thinking that my dad liked him work. There must be something wrong with him. But I found out there's something wrong with Disney. Now, my dad took time when he rested. He took time to invest in me. And I did not appreciate it like I ought to, and I wish I could wake every kid up right now and tell you that if your dad's around at all, enjoy it. Because we live in a very demanding day. And it seems like, especially in America, a lot of dads don't even stay. So be thankful for what you've got. Don't spend your days accruing all these offenses, because at some point you're going to have to lay them down. That's what you can do, is not put all those in the bag. My dad was a great dad, and I remember Christmas because he made time for me. He made time for us. We have traditions about spending time with each other, but he did what he could do, you know? And
think about, some of you are thinking, these are odd Sundays that we're having because they're up here talking. And
conversation.
They're having conversation. And I think it's pastor's prayers, our prayer, that when you walk out of here, you're able to take a sense of, because we're talking about old-fashioned Christmas. What's the importance of Christmas? And I can say that, especially in related to the work part, that, as I said, our dad worked all the time. If dad wasn't sitting at the table and reading his Bible, or sitting in his chair reading his Bible, he was at work. He was doing something. He was being productive in the area of work that he was called to do. Mm-hmm. He was at the church. He was going all kind of stuff that dad was involved in work-wise on the mission field and everything else. And part of that is that I grew up in India, and so I grew up in a boarding school. I went to boarding school after the first grade, basically the end of first grade, kind of try it out. And in second grade, third grade, fourth grade, I was in boarding school. So some of those things that experiencing when dad come home or mom came home, I didn't have at times. I remember when they came up for hill season, which was just basically a time when it got so hot down in the city in Madras that a lot of missionaries that their kids were in boarding school would come up and visit because it was a lot cooler. They could take a moment to break and rest a little bit. And so I remember those times because dad was around, mom was around, and we did stuff as a family. I remember we gathered around and play games at night and do things like that with the other missionary families. But other times I don't remember when dad was around. I was telling him that when we came back to the States and lived in the States, and when I wrestled and played baseball and did sports, and yes, I did wrestle. Some of you are looking, how in the world? I was seventh.
That's actually what we're going to do this morning. Okay,
we're getting ready. I was a lot smaller then. I was large for my age, and but I remember those things. And looking out, I don't ever remember seeing dad there because he was working, because he was involved in what he was doing, and sometimes I don't know if this is too early to say this or not, but sometimes if we're not careful, I want you to hear me. Sometimes if we're not careful, we allow seeds that are not the correct seeds to be planted in our life. We allow seeds to be planted that never should have been planted. And we begin to blame people. We begin to blame our parents. We begin to blame our father. Well, they were never around. They were always working. They were always doing these things. And maybe, just maybe, it had to do with how they grew up. Because right. I know for dad, it was always instilled in him from the time he was little, from he was a little boy, that work is, you work. A man works. A man does what he needs to do to provide for the family. It's always been instilled in him since he was a child. And even mom growing up here, granddaddy was a farmer. What do farmers do? They work. They're always involved, and the family's involved in that process. And mom growing up with that idea of work and the importance of what it was. And mom was there in the house and working in the house very diligently and all of that. But I want us to understand this morning, listen, be careful of the seeds that you allow to be planted in your life. And if there's seeds that should not have been planted, be very careful that you make time to take those seeds back out.
That's good.
Because what you let grow affects your future. And if there's seeds that don't need to be there, seeds of bitterness, seeds of hate, seeds of untrust, seeds that you're always blaming somebody else, be careful of the seeds that you allow into your life that should not be there.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things we wanted to mention with this, and you're hitting the nail on the head. It sounds like sometimes, I always feel like I have to say things from two sides, right? I want to tell you that you need to spend time with your family, take a rest, but I don't feel like I can say that without saying you should have been working, right? Like preparation is the attitude of life. Like there is a prerequisite to the rest. So if you've been a bum all year, go ahead and keep working. But most of us have been working. So this is the time to make sure that you're taking this back. But it kind of sounds like a little bit like dads, all you got to do is show up. Like be there. And that a little bit is the case, is like being there is huge. Let me say something else. Mamas, be there. Be present. Don't be so freaked out about the crescents that you can't spend time with the kids. I promise you, you are a greater present. You are a greater gift. You are a greater joy than whatever it is you're cooking up. We like what you're cooking now. We like what you're cooking. Preparation is important, right? But being there is so much more important. And the reason I want to mention this is because I'm saying to dads, like, make sure you take time off to spend with the kids. I'm saying that be with the family. But on the other hand, it's like, and moms, make it special. Well, that's a lot of work. Right? Ladies, go ahead. Tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, all right? It's a lot of shopping, a lot of decor, let me just tell you, the magic of Christmas is a lot of work. Yeah. The magic of Christmas is work. It's work to somebody. Recently I was talking to a grandmother. I'm volleying off what you just said there because I was talking to a grandmother recently that she said to me, Pastor Webb, I used to love Christmas so much, but there's so much going on now. And I laughed at her because what she meant by so much going on is somebody did the work that she's doing now. She just didn't know they were doing it. When you were a kid, somebody cooked the collards. You didn't. You showed up and there was 43 dozen desserts that somebody else has spent a week cooking. And you guys do enjoy it. And the older we get, the more the responsibility of the magic falls on you. Those of you with some gray hair, amen at any point. All right? It gets more expensive. The time costs more. It takes more time to do all the things, and you're too tired to do it, ain't you? And there's sometimes a feeling creeps into Christmas like, in just a few days it'll be over. When these are the best days we got. On the other side of those days, you say to yourself, my Lord, I wish I would have enjoyed it more. So we're taking the time to say to you, make sure you enjoy. Because the real magic of Christmas, the work has already been done. There was work that had to be done, but somebody did it. The gift has been given, and the work has been done. The Christmas, if you're freaked out about the word magic, all I just mean is the fuzzies that you feel. Let's say that, okay? But the joy of Christmas, it costs somebody something.
And remember the gratitude of Christmas. Why? Because how many of you went Black Friday shopping? Come on, don't be ashamed. Some of you men went Black Friday shopping. You enjoyed it. No, Earl did not. Some of you did. You went Black Friday. How many of you realize that there had to be someone who came and opened up that store where you went Black Friday shopping too? How many of you realize that all those workers that showed up so that you could come Black Friday shopping, and that same worker that you got aggravated with because they didn't get you what you want soon enough, they had to show up and do the work? How many of you realize the gas station where you filled up your car, someone had to come open those doors. Someone had to turn the pumps on so you could pump your gas. How many of you realize that the McDonald's where you stopped at to get your food and was slow and the ice cream machine didn't work again for the 500th time at the same McDonald's? And you think, why do you have an ice cream machine? I'm going to Wendy's. Sorry, okay.
This message is brought to you by Wendy's.
I'm talking to somebody this morning. They had to come and open the door so that you could fuss and say, why don't you have the ice cream machine working? So give me a coffee. And somebody showed up and did the job so that you could enjoy the day. And as we were saying, it's not even in that I was just sitting here thinking, man, we miss moments to give gratitude and appreciation in this time of year because we're so caught up with the things and being upset over the things and getting aggravated over the things that really don't have any matter about Christmas at all. And we forgot to stop and look at the person and say, thank you. Thank you for just showing up. I know this is a time for you want to be with your family too. Thanks for showing up.
So, thanks for showing up. The work that you can do, we started out with that. You talked about things that got on our hearts as a kid and how that gets displayed different ways. Black Friday is a day that people display some things. Yeah. Did y'all find any mean drivers on Black Friday, those of you who went out there? I do all my Black Friday shopping on the line. It's my favorite spot. It's my favorite place to shop, on my phone. Talking about how you experience Christmas and the things that you carry, the places you were talking about a while ago, like your dad, the things that you carried for some time. You've laid them down at this point. But everybody's got some stuff you're carrying. Kris Kringle ain't the only one with a bag of tricks, you know? All of us are carrying some stuff. Hurts in our childhood. Dad didn't show up. Dad, my figgy pudding wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Anybody ever sang some of those songs and thought something was going to be good? Figgy pudding is not what that song made it sound like it was going to be. I don't know if you've ever tried that, but it's rough. All right. But everybody has a past. A lot of the things that you experienced, you said your dad's past probably had a lot to do with the person that he was.
Sure.
So all of us have things that are in our hearts. Some of you have had tracks that your parents played for you over and over again, and you're expecting someone else to change the tune, but it's the voice in your head that keeps hearing the same thing over and over again, right?
Yeah.
So let's take it Christmas for just a minute. The story of Christmas. I wonder what the childhood trauma or issues or whatever, childhood seeds that were placed on the heart. Think about how these people responded to Jesus in the story and what must have happened in their childhood as they were growing up. The shepherds. The shepherds are out there minding their own business. They're workaholics. They're working hard. In the middle of the night, they're watching sheep out in the field. I don't know whose field that was, but I bet he won't happy in the morning. They got their sheep out there eating all this stuff in the field, and angels show up, and they say, born today in Bethlehem, it's the Son of God, the Messiah. And then they all sing, glorify God, and poof, the angels are gone. But how did the shepherds respond?
They left. Thought, what happened to the sheep?
Right.
What in the world? They're out there guarding their sheep, working in the field, doing what they were born to do, what their heritage had, their father, just thinking in regard to their family history. I mean, they learned hard work. They were hard work. And all of a sudden the angel shows up and tells them this, hey, there's a baby born. And the shepherds leave everything to go find this baby. Did they watch the sheep? Did they not watch the sheep? All these things. Maybe none of you are like me or Pastor Webb and think about some of these things. But,
right.
But what about what about Herod?
Yeah.
Here's a man who, just think about this for a minute. Here's a man who put out the decree that every child was going to be killed. Not every male child was to be killed. Not just one. We're not just looking for the one that's threatening every male child. What is going on in his life? What has happened in his past? What has happened in his family history that brought him to this point that every male child is to be killed? Obviously, we understand prophecy, all these things that are playing out, but what's going on in him?
Yeah, if the first thing you think when you hear there's a baby born, the first thing you think is, okay, let's go kill them all. There's something in his childhood. There's something in his past. There's some paranoia that started a long time ago. But the moment the shepherds see angels, they decide to leave all their flocks, their entire heritage, and to go chase down to find out where this baby is. And they go and glorify. And they're the first ones. They're the first guests in the hospital. Stinky old shepherds. They didn't even have time to go shower. Like they ran to see Jesus. What happened to those people? The wise men. How long did they search for Jesus? There was a searching in them that's probably taught for them
from the beginning.
From the beginning. They're all carrying things.
And I wonder, I did this with my boys. How many of you had a trampoline, and when your kids were little, you would lay on the trampoline and all of you just look up at the stars and try and count the stars and name the stars and all those things? I wonder, did they do that with their fathers? Did they have a trampoline of some sort? Did they just lay out in the field next to the camels and look up and count the stars and learn what the heritage that was being passed down? Did their parents, did the people around them take the time necessary to spend with them? Set the work aside and spend the time that they needed to, because there was something there that made them want to go seek Jesus. There was something there within them that made them want to go find this baby that was talked about.
So Jesus is offered to you today. The angel of the Lord is here to say, there is a baby born. He's yours. Number one, the work is done. The beauty of Christmas is the grace given through Jesus. That's the beauty of Christmas. You are not left out. However, the gift can be bought, it can be wrapped, it can be under the tree. But if you don't show up and you don't receive the gift, you don't get it. It's been given, but you have to take it. You have to let go of the past concerns, issues, things that you've struggled with. You have to let go of those things that have been put in your heart. You have to let go of those things so that you can receive the free given gift of Jesus. For the reason Christmas is so wonderful is because your presence is the gift. But we need to also make sure that our presence is a good presence. And in order to do that, we got to let go of some mess to do so.
As we talked about the work that was done. I mentioned it last week. I wonder what that moment was like. That God the Father looks and says, son, time has come. Time has come, and I'm sending you down to, there's a young girl down there, a teenage girl who's willing to be a vessel. She's not perfect, but she's willing to be a vessel, and she's going to give birth to you in earthly form. We don't want to talk about that sometimes because am I being unreverent? No, listen, she gave birth to God the Son in earthly form. The work had been done. The work of heaven that was to come to this earth. And what was the work that he was going to do? He came to earth not just to be born, not just to show that the life and experience all the things that he experienced, the rejection, the hurt, the pain, all those things that he went through that you and I walked through. Maybe Joseph, as he's growing up, was spent every single day in the carpenter shop working, and he had to go say, hey, Dad, can we just take a moment? We take a time out, and can we go throw rocks together? Whatever they did. We forget he was human. So did he miss some time with Dad because Dad was always working? I don't know. The Bible doesn't say those things, but there are things I wonder about. Why? Because sometimes those things in our own life construe what we think about Christmas, what we think about people, what we think about family, all those things, because someone in our past didn't show up. Someone didn't do what they said they would do. And we have that trust issue. The song we sang earlier, I trust in you. Why? Because we haven't really received the full gift of who he was and why he came, and the reason why Jesus came, the reason why he was born, the reason why he did all that he did was so that he could give his life so that you and I could have life. The very reason that Jesus comes to this earth is for the cross. The sacrificial lamb. Why? Because if I had to get up every single day, if I had to get up every Sunday and bring a lamb and do all that was required, trust me, Kevin would be really tired of having to do that. Just be honest with my own flesh. And Jesus gave me a gift that I could never give myself. And he gives you a gift that you could never give yourself, and it's the gift of grace. It's the very gift of grace. We miss it. We miss the gift that he wants to bring, and we look at it, and sometimes we think that it's all ugly. And he wraps it up and he says, listen, I want you to understand that the price, that the gift I give you, one of the gifts I give you is the gift of grace. And is all you have to do is just take it. You can't do anything to earn it. You can't sacrifice enough goats to get it. He already paid it. He already did the work. And it's free. It's the greatest gift that you'll receive this year. It's his gift of grace to you. Another gift that he gives is not just the gift of grace, but there was something else that happened after the cross. The Bible's very clear that on the third day he rose again. On the third day he rose again. You see, God's not dead. He's not in the tomb. He's seated on the right hand of the Father. He went back home. He went back home. You see, I wonder this morning if he would allow his flesh as an earthly person to really get the best of him. Could he have become angry? Could he have become angry toward his Father? That gift of life that he gives us is wrapped up For some of you, you need to receive life this morning, and you'll never receive the life that you need to receive until you learn forgiveness. Why? Because you've let the seeds of all the past that you should have never allowed to be planted, and you hold unforgiveness in your life, and you've got to let that go so you can experience life. It would have been really easy my dad's an incredible man who I love dearly, who's blessed our home, who's shown me what it is to be a man of God, shown me what it is to live a life as a servant to God. When I say I don't believe there's a day that's passed that my father hasn't studied the Word of God and spent time in prayer, I don't know a day that's passed that he hasn't done that. He's taught me what it is to be a man of God. And it would have been real easy as a young man, as a young boy, to look up when I got up off the mat and looked out and Dad wasn't there because he was at church. He was busy working. It would have been real easy when I looked up, when I got a base hit or something and looked over and Dad wasn't in there. It would have been real easy for me to allow those seeds of bitterness to continue. But I had to choose. I had to choose to unplant some things that were planted that should have never been there. God gives you life, but some of you need to release the thing that's been holding you back to receive full life. And the last gift that I believe that he wants you to experience this morning, what does all that wrap up to do? See, this last gift for me this morning is a gift called trust. It's grace, it's life and unforgiveness, but it's also trust. That a man who gave his life, rose on the third day, is the same one who intercedes for me on a daily basis to the Father. He's the same one that gives me protection, guidance. The same one that loves me today just like he did the first day I gave my life to him. The same one who's never failed me. Can I trust him? Oh, you better believe I can. And can I tell you, for some of you, that's a gift. Because you've blamed what everybody else did. You've blamed it on God when God had nothing to do with it. And you need to relearn how to trust him. And he offers you a gift of trust this morning. He offers you a gift of trust. Trust him with your life. Maybe you walked in this morning, you haven't given your life to Jesus. Why? Because you're not sure you can trust him. Because other people have failed you. Can I tell you one thing that God has never done? He's never failed me. As we get ready to close, I want to close with this illustration. I know I've used it before, but I just felt it appropriate. Noah, would you come here a minute? As he comes, I'm going to ask the prayer team to just come and line up across the front here. And prayer team, would you just come and line up here in a minute? Come on. As he's coming. When Noah was a young boy, guessing probably somewhere around 3 or so, 3.5, when teams would come to visit us in El Salvador, we would work really hard, and the last day that they were there, we would take them to do something. That was whether we'd take them to the beach or somewhere else. And a team had come to visit us from Ohio, and we had taken them to this little beach resort area on the last day and playing in the pool. And the pool had an aerial wall that was above the pool. Some of the kids had decided that in the youth group that had come to visit us, they had decided they'd get up and walk across the wall and stand out kind of where it was. It wasn't really deep, but they would stand out where it's probably the deepest, and then they would jump into the water. And Noah wanted to do it. Noah wanted to be brave. So he got up on the wall and started walking across, and as many of us and as his dad probably would have done, because I don't like heights, he stood on the edge and contemplated jumping. But fear took over. Good old fear, huh? See, can I tell you, this Christmas, some of you have allowed fear to take over what you really need to do. Fear will always hold you back from the thing that, if you'll just trust your Heavenly Father with, it'll be all right. So he started to walk off, and he started to walk. I said, Noah, come back. And he came walking back over, and I looked up at him. I'm in the water, and I looked up at my son. I said, son, do you trust me? Do you trust that your dad will catch you? Wasn't sure at first if he did, because he just stared at me. But my now 19-year-old son, 3 years old, decided that he could trust his dad with his life. And he jumped. What did Dad do?
I'm assuming he caught me. Or he didn't let me drown, at least.
Good play. Yeah, when he jumped, because I did as any good father would do, I caught him. I didn't catch him in the air, but I held him as he hit the water and didn't allow him to go under the thing that he was fearful of. And today, I've got a son that I hope still trusts his dad. I've got a son that loves God. Got a son, 2 sons I'm incredibly proud of. And I brought him up because I want you to understand that people may fail you, but God will never, never fail you. And some of you need to be willing to walk to the edge. Some of you this morning need to be willing to get up and walk to the edge and say, Father, I've been scared of a lot of things, but this morning I trust you. I accept your gift of trust because I know you'll never fail me. I know you'll never drop me because you're a good, good Father. So I'm going to ask you to stand. And here's how we're going to close. God, would you just come and spread out across? nothing really. I've just asked them to come to be a connection, a prayer support to those who would like to come this morning. Some of you need to receive the gift of life and that you forgive. Some of you have been harboring unforgiveness, and it's held you back at Christmas. Some of you have been harboring things and you're holding them in, and it disturbs every single Christmas that you've had. And you can't seem to listen, receive that gift that God gives you this morning of life. Some of you this morning need to come and receive the gift of grace. Maybe you've done some things that you're not real proud of. And maybe you feel like you failed as a dad or a mom. As a husband or as a wife or as a grandma or granddaddy. Receive the gift of grace. The gift of grace. Grace doesn't mean that you go back and do the same thing tomorrow and the next day. Grace means that I release myself to God. And I may not be perfect tomorrow, the next day, or the day after, but I'm going to continue to strive to get better.
Thank you for joining the Bethel Assembly Sermon Podcast. For more information on our ministry, visit our website at askewvilleassembly.com.